There is a truth most men don't want to admit. A woman's physical beauty is not only a blessing, but also a mask, one that often hides chaos underneath. The stronger her magnetism, the higher the chance that her inner world is a mixture of pain, fear, pride, and instinctive self-protection. This is not always an illness in the clinical sense. More often, it is a chronic psychological tension she has learned to wear, like a designer dress, since her youth, from the moment beauty began to determine her place in the social hierarchy. Beauty makes a woman visible to the world, yet at the same time vulnerable. Her body becomes an arena for other people's desires, her face a target for their judgments, and her gaze a battlefield between her own identity and the projections others place upon her. With every compliment, she learns not only to accept attention, but also to read its hidden price, because glances, words, and gestures rarely arrive without subtext. They almost always carry a concealed invoice she will eventually have to pay. Attractive women quickly realize that beauty is a currency, one that devalues if it's not backed by the game. And so they learn to play. They create images, switch masks, manipulate the light and shadow of their own behavior. Over time, their psychology turns into an endless theater where the leading role is not the one they long to play, but the one the world is willing to buy. And that role rarely allows for authenticity. The more men admire them, the less they truly see. What goes unnoticed is the fatigue, the constant fear of losing the advantage on which their social power rests. The jealousy toward other women the world also calls beautiful. The painful need to have their worth confirmed. A need that sometimes becomes an addiction, and in the end, the quiet despair at the thought that without beauty, their existence would become transparent and invisible to the world. Their mental illness is neither whim nor exaggeration. It is years of adaptation to living in an environment where you are judged before you've even spoken your first word. It is the habit of not trusting, because trust has so often turned into betrayal. It is the skill of laughing when you want to cry, so no one can sense your weakness. It is an internal war between the longing to remove the mask and the fear that the real you will not be accepted, and perhaps even rejected. When a man looks at an attractive woman, he falls in love with the facade he sees. But the facade is only the first layer. Inside, there may be loneliness, paranoia, constant control over herself and others, sudden bursts of anger or provocative behavior that hides deep insecurity, and an insatiable need to feel significant. This doesn't mean that every beautiful woman is broken, but beauty always carries pressure, constant, invisible, yet palpable. And over the years, that pressure can break even the strongest character. If you want to understand such a woman, you must look deeper than the surface glow. You must hear not only her words, but the silence between them. You must sense the stories she will never speak aloud, because each one is a memory powerful enough to destroy the defenses she has so carefully built. The most paradoxical part is that the more the world demands her perfection, the further she drifts from her own authenticity. Sometimes she no longer remembers who she was before she became the woman everyone wants. And perhaps the most dangerous part of this story is that the world keeps applauding her, even as she slowly loses herself. But there is another layer most people never even think to see. An attractive woman is often forced to live under double control, both external and internal. External control is the stares, the comments, the unsolicited advice, the endless "you should" coming from society, from men, and even from other women. Internal control is the strict discipline she imposes on herself, monitoring every detail of her appearance, every word she speaks, every gesture she makes, all to ensure no crack appears in the image. Over time, this becomes a closed loop. The more she strives to match the image, the further she drifts from herself. Her day doesn't begin with the question, "What do I want?" but with, "What is expected of me today?" And even in moments of joy, somewhere deep inside remains the feeling that she is playing a role in a play someone else has written. Many people wonder why attractive women sometimes react sharply, provocatively, or with a calculated coldness. But this is not always about temperament. Often it is a defensive response, to filter out the weak, to show that she is not easily approached, to prevent yet another painful story that begins with admiration and ends with betrayal. She may appear confident, but her confidence is a suit of armor. Beneath it may live a small, frightened girl who once believed she was loved just for being herself, and later realized that love often arrived with conditions. And the more beautiful she became, the more conditions appeared. An attractive woman rarely feels complete safety. Even in relationships, she may live in tension, waiting for the moment when she will no longer be valued, or when she will be replaced by someone younger, fresher. This fear can sit quietly inside her for years, shaping habits and behavioral patterns that, from the outside, may look like mental instability. In reality, it is a reaction to an environment that constantly questions her worth. And that is why many attractive women unconsciously turn their lives into a testing ground for those around them. They test for strength, provoke, push boundaries, not because they love chaos, but because they want to see who will stay even when the gloss fades and reality appears. The tragedy is that beauty, which could have been a source of joy, so often becomes a source of anxiety. And those who fall in love with the exterior are rarely willing to go deeper to see the real person. Because the real her is not only the smile in a photograph, but also the sleepless nights, the inner doubts, the wounds that haven't healed in years. And perhaps the greatest paradox is that the more striking her outward beauty, the smaller the chance that someone will one day love her without the armor, without the masks, without the conditions. And then the question, why are attractive women mentally unstable, transforms into another, far sadder one. Why has the world never given them the chance to simply be women, instead of eternal beauty icons terrified of losing their throne?